Welcome to Rabbit Holes with Aaron. I'm Aaron, and today as my guest, I have my bonus daughter's fiance, Brian, and he's had some really cool experiences lately, or, well,
Yeah,
depends on probably different from different people looking on, but he wants to talk a little bit about
yeah.
what
It's
he
just
went through.
last
He was
time.
in a motorcycle accident and hospitalization and surgery, just to kind of give you the wave tops. So,
Yeah,
yeah, welcome.
I guess we are. I've been here before, and since the last time that we talked, I've had some pretty interesting things happen in my life. And of course, you touched on it a little bit. I was in a motorcycle accident, but me and your bonus daughter, Jessica, your daughter-in-law, we were picking up a new motorcycle in Oklahoma that was about 3 hours away. And so we make the drive up there, and because my other bike was just loud and obnoxious and didn't get good gas mileage and couldn't get it to pass this emissions inspection and all of that. So we were getting something that was newer and nicer. And so we go and pick it up. It's a great bike. I have fun on it. Riding it back from Oklahoma on the interstate, and I remember seeing one deer like skittering and jumping across the road. You know how they do with their hooves slipping on the road. And I went, "Oh, look, a deer." And then one jumped into the side of me and took me off the bike and knocked me out. I don't know if the deer knocked me out or if hitting the highway knocked me out, but yeah, I was in a serious motorcycle accident. I had a subdermal hematoma. My brain was bleeding, is what that means. I had a fully collapsed lung, 11 broken bones, seven of them were my ribs, and the rest were my shoulder. And I wanted to talk on this some because I used to have a really deep interest in the other side and death and what might be there for us. And I used to dabble in psychedelics and taking mushrooms and LSD. I did DMT. And I had this wild fascination for this concept of near death experiences. Like I said, I've read this book on it. And I sit back and I think, and I'm like, man, I didn't experience anything. I was unconscious for minutes. It must have been 30 minutes. I didn't have a conscious thought again until I was in the hospital, with the neck brace and all the IVs in me, and I guess it just kind of affects me that I didn't have this amazing experience that I've read about from all of these other people having motorcycle accidents or car accidents or drownings or, going unconscious for sometimes only 5 minutes and having this amazing encounter with the Lord. And me being someone who used to be atheist and then converted to Christianity because I had an amazing encounter with the Lord, sober in a coffee shop, and it's just this amazing concept. And I wonder why it is that in something like this, I have this relationship with Jesus and the Father, and why this opportunity didn't provide an encounter like it did for some people.
Well, you know what? I think about it, and some people need more reassurance and help than other people do. What do
Hmm.
you think about that?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
of course.
the guy that's running as fast as he can towards self-destruction and relationship death and all this stuff, he's the one that needs like a wake-up call and a really cool story and a
Yeah,
come to Jesus moment.
a
Whereas if we're
testimony.
already walking on that path, but go ahead, continue.
No, I was just thinking a testimony is the word you were looking for.
Yeah.
I wonder, it makes me interested. I get on this little topic of how he manages, because the father is a being, he manages tasks and, he cares about us and our lives and, he's very meticulous. I just get interested on what system he has in place, for monitoring our lives,
Hmm.
how exactly in his realm he walks with each and every one of us constantly.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's like you think about that and you're like your walk with the Lord, and he's there with you constantly. And so in such a place of just of unconsciousness and I guess fear, I'm left wondering why I didn't have an encounter. And I guess maybe he didn't need to teach me something in the moment. Maybe he wasn't trying to show me something.
I mean, if you're listening, you don't require quite as big of a, you know, story or presentation. I'm already listening. All he has to do is say, take a right here. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't need to be beat up over the head and about the head and shoulders with a 2x4 to listen because I was already in a posture of listening, perhaps.
Yeah. And then that makes me think of the story of the prodigal son,
Hmm.
or the shepherd with the 99. He mentions in the story the rest of the flock, but the story in that moment is centered around this specific one. So I guess in such ways, like, we're not always going to have, even though we're in his presence, we're not always going to have, when these opportunities arise, this revelation and encounter.
Perhaps.
I guess what you're implying would be like, if you're in his will, then you're one of the 99. You're one of the sheep that's still in the pasture. You're still in the side of the shepherd, and so you don't need to have this big side quest story.
Yeah. Well, I like being on that story of the one versus the 99. I've thought about that a lot. And I want to be like that. Not the one, but I want to be like him. The world is not wired this way, right? They're not like, give us your business plan to reach one person. Here you go. Here's $1 million to reach one person. No, they
Yeah.
want to know you're going to reach a lot of people. They want to know, they want to see millions or hundreds of thousands or unlimited worldwide. And then they're like, okay, that seems like a good investment. But so it's kind of opposite of how the world and finances work. But I'm looking for that one person. I'm looking for that one person. And they don't have to be like down and out and lost. I'm not like looking for that one person under the overpasses of Dallas or anything like that. But in my realm and in my world, in my life and my circles, and maybe a little bit outside of that, I'm looking for, hey, you look lost. Is everything
Huh.
okay? Do you need some help? Whether it's they're looking for the gas station or, you know, they're just completely confused. What do you think about that?
That soil that's ready to receive, that I think that everyone who's had an encounter with the Lord, who has tasted that, I guess that spring that's there, a spring of life, you can discern whenever you encounter some people who's ready to hear the gospel and who's not. You can go around to everybody, but it's kind of like that. You have this new ability to discern if people are ready to receive. I think I've realized in my life since I've become a Christian, that's gone further than just preaching the gospel or reach or outreach to somebody, or just the clerk at the Pizza Hut. Hey, Jesus loves you.
Yeah.
But there's always that magical moment when you encounter that perfect person at the perfect time, that has the want that you're needing to fill with whatever you have that you want to give, and that that what you have to offer is not going to go to waste. And I think we as Christians, walking with Jesus, have this amazing ability to do that the world doesn't have. Because the world's so full of deceit and lies, and we have to be given this gift to discern lies in a world ruled by the king of lies, I guess.
Yeah, it's discernment. Well, yeah, when you talk about truth, that always gets me thinking because, and this story's been passed around a bit lately, but, to find the counterfeit $100 bills, they don't study all the different ways to make a counterfeit.
Mhm.
You study the one
The
original
one
$100
bill.
bill, yeah, and a plate and whatever else. And then once you know it so well, you can just see $100 like fly by your head over here. Not that I have a lot of $100 bills flying around or anything, but and you can look at it and say, that's odd. And even your subconscious now is trained to kind of pick up on stuff that is, well, sometimes it's not even a lie. A lie kind of means intentionally
Yeah.
being inaccurate, but sometimes it's just ignorance and inaccurate. That's what I've been
Hmm.
liking to call it. If someone, I'll think about something somebody told me, and I'm like, oh, that's not true. That's a lie. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. Let me roll that back a second. I don't think they realized it was a lie. So then that makes it not a lie. That just makes it inaccurate.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where the truth is that and Jordan Peterson says this, if you choose something you have to say, something you feel like you need to say, and you don't say it, that's a lie. So
Mm.
it's like intentionally editing out the truth kind of is a
Yeah.
lie.
Is also a lie. Yeah. Withholding important information. that can impart the same emotion when you get caught. When someone discovers that hidden information. As a, man, I had something. I was going to say something, but I have a story that has to do with the $100 bill that I'll have to tell you off the podcast. Yeah, we'll talk about that one another time. But it always reminds me of my past life before the Lord. It's no stranger to my friends and family that I have that. But that exact story, it was funny. I heard a pastor telling that analogy of the counterfeit bill, and I thought of that same story, and we'll have to together on that one.
Well, and I think about the danger. It's funny because it's so ironic and counterintuitive. There's a danger to being absolute expert on the real thing, on the
Mm,
truth. The
yeah,
danger is once you start really digging into, let's say, the Bible, for instance, as the ultimate source of truth, as you start really digging into it, you're like, hey, wait a minute. This doesn't match with the church I've been going to my whole life. Wait a minute. This
yeah,
doesn't match with my mom and dad told me, and I'm a teenager. Wait a minute. This doesn't, and you start to be such an expert of the truth that you see that everybody around you is operating in inaccurate,
yeah.
intentional lying most of the time, and illusions, like a whole, illusion of things where you think you're seeing something, but it's really all just a facade.
Hmm. Yeah,
And there's a
that's part of
danger
the
to that.
that's part of
I
the
mean, I
culture that we have too. Is
sure.
the American culture is this like, and social media doesn't help with that. This playing face for the outside world and not being true to who you are with yourself, your family, your neighbors, and also the guy at HEB, and also your friend groups. You know,
Yeah. Well, and that's called authenticity, right? Where you're the same person no matter who you're around.
yeah, yeah. That's a fun one. Whenever you have friend groups or you go out and you've met somebody once before and now you're meeting them again at a different outing with different people and they're just a completely different person. You pick up on that. And you're like, huh, wait a second,
Yeah.
and there's usually always something comes along with that person. I feel like, but I guess that's where grace comes in. Once you become such an expert at something, you have to
Yeah.
operate out of love, because if you're not operating out of love, that expertise makes you puffed up and conceited, and if you don't have grace
Yeah.
and love, then you'll fall into that trap of, I know, trust me. I encountered that a couple times whenever I was a new Christian, and I was getting some friends from the college. I was going to LC, and we would go to Target and just do outreach, and like we would go to these stores, Target, Walmart, wherever, head shops. We went to tattoo shops and bars and nail salons just to reach out to people and preach the gospel, and tell them more than just, hey, Jesus loves you, but more like digging in, and talking about who he is as a person and giving testimony. But I would encounter these people, mostly like older, last generation, like, oh, I know the Bible. Trust me, I know Jesus,
Yeah.
and you can't tell me that
Yeah.
I that there's more to it than I've had, because I spent the last 60 years going to a Baptist church,
Yeah.
and
I know God. Well,
yeah.
yeah, I know all about God. Okay, you know
Okay,
all
well,
about
I'm
him.
here today to talk to you about God, and maybe something will happen. You don't know. You don't know what He's trying to do right now. You don't know why we're here in this moment talking to each other, what He's going to do. You just got to be open to receive, have grace and love and compassion, or you'll fall back into the old you. You'll get puffed up and conceited in the new you.
Yeah. Well, and I can recognize looking through my past that there was many times, well, through most of my life, I've had more focus on understanding the Bible than a lot of people around me. And there were times in my life when I was like the know-it-all, the Bible know-it-all, right? Like especially in my 20s, like in a Bible study or something else, I wouldn't try and take over, but I would be like, "Oh yeah, I remember." Just like right now when you were talking, I thought about 1 Corinthians 13. Like if I have all knowledge and know all things but have not love,
Hmm.
I'm a clanging cymbal. I'm like absolutely. I'm not only useless. I'm
You're just
annoying.
you're annoying
Right?
to you're
Yeah.
not you're doing nothing for the kingdom. You're not operating out of love. You're operating out of lies. You're operating out of like just untruthfulness.
One pride too, and
Yeah.
yeah, it does
Look
come
at
that
me, how much
way.
I know.
Yeah. Hey, look at me. Well, actually, in Second Corinthians, if you dig down into the ancient Greek, what you find is there's some
Yeah.
subject, or whatever. You can
Yeah.
just really. I love to do that voice because it's
Yeah.
my voice from my 20s. You know.
Yeah. Well, actually, the way that the Hebrews interpreted that word in that time period was this way. And it's like, so everything that you think that you believe about Jesus Christ is wrong. When, I mean, he says, even if somebody's, preaching wrong, if they're preaching in his name, then they're furthering the gospel in some way, somehow. He's going to make it work for his good. So we can safely operate in this, like, you don't need to make a show correcting someone because he's going to do it in his own time. We can have compassion and
Yeah.
grace and just encounter people and move forward.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, I probably know a lot more than I did in my 20s. But how I guess God has made that show up for me lately is in a way you might not expect, or well, you know me a little bit, and it's in more listening, more quiet, more reflection, more listening, more, when they say that, they say the more you know, the more you realize what all the things you don't know.
Mm,
And then and that's what this podcast is all about, right? I bring on people that aren't necessarily experts in anything, and I'm not an expert at anything. And as we listen, we all get something, and we're like, oh, wow, I've never heard that before. Let me check out this nugget of truth. Yeah, I think I'll keep this. Thank you. And my light bulb comes on, or,
mm,
the guest light bulb comes on because the more knowledge, well, I guess wisdom and knowledge kind of go together, but the more you got, the more you realize you don't got. It's
mm.
like I need to listen more.
Yeah. I encountered that in a way in Bible college. I almost got caught up in this culture of like hooping and hollering and like praising in tongues really loud, and just this culture of like
Kind of showy.
it's kind of showy. And I experienced that, and I got a little caught up in that culture. And then I had this moment during a sermon where I realized that when I was on my knees, I was still like crying and stuff. But when I wasn't, it's good to raise your hands and do that stuff, and postures of worship and different things. But like you can get so easily entwined in like raise your hands. If you're not raising your hands, you're worshiping wrong, and you just need to sometimes just stop and listen, because his name Yahweh is the air that you breathe, right? And air is quiet, right? And when the air is trying
Yeah,
to tell you something, you're talking over the wind. It's He's the spirit. He's not a brass banging cymbal. He's not a drum set that's got lambskin stretched over it with wood banging on it. You People can get caught up worshiping this god of music and the idea of worshiping God rather than doing it.
yeah,
When you can just stop and listen, and he'll just swoop you right in. And so there's this thing with listening that it's huge. It's huge.
yeah,
It's an important thing.
yeah.
You can't learn anything if you don't listen.
I mean, I'm at 52, and now I'm learning, like I'm starting to learn to listen. Well, I'm 51 actually. I'm sorry, I don't know where 52 came from. It's all a blur. Once you get to 50, you'll find the same thing, or maybe in your 20s, you're like, what? How old am I again? Let me do the math.
Yeah.
But
Start telling people I'm 27. Oh wait, I'm 26.
I did that too. I was thinking about this. What's the key to not being a know-it-all? I guess. I didn't have to think about that. I didn't have to do any lists or check the blocks or steps to get there. But what God kind of led me to was the anonymity, the being faceless and nameless. Oh
Mm,
yeah, thank you for helping me. What church do you go to? No
Yeah.
church. What's your name? My name's Aaron. You
Mm.
know, where do you live? Well, it depends.
Yeah.
I move around a lot, you
Depends on
know,
what year it is, what season it
and
is.
they're trying to, and they're honestly just curious, and there's nothing wrong with them. But for me, like when it comes to how Jesus did things and what he talked about, like anonymity was a big factor. And if a person finds they're caught up in the show,
Yeah. Yeah. Look at everything I'm doing for you, God. Yeah. 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 It's intimate.
me and God do it together, and Jesus was really clear on that. If like you're doing it so another person sees it, or even if you're doing it and another person sees it, it
Yeah.
could be like, well, you got what you were going for there.
Yeah. You're not going to
You
get
know,
anything else. You've already received your reward.
yeah, you look good. That's your reward.
Yeah. That's your reward. You're doing it right.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're so focused on look at everything I'm doing, God. Give me a revelation when he's like, well, why aren't you looking at what I did for you? And just, you know,
yeah,
humbling yourself. And I guess he knows obviously what you're thinking and what you're going for, but it's the ability to step out of line and pee your pants, I guess, so to speak, just letting go of everything so that he can move. Because if you're holding on to something, he's going to be like, well, you got it.
yeah, yeah. I love that, the faceless, nameless kind of. Not that you don't give your name, like, sorry, I'm the nameless saint
Yeah.
or something like that.
I'm
But
Batman.
just that, like, also, let's compare it to another extreme example. Like, I'm here and we're doing work in your neighborhood, and yeah, let's stand in front of the sign and shake hands and smile, get the picture, put it on Facebook,
Yeah.
show it at church on Sunday, and, get more generosity. And
Yeah.
it's like,
We'll get more people to
okay,
show up
well,
this weekend.
but that's diminishing rewards. What's not diminishing rewards is the fruit of the Spirit: peace, joy, kindness, gentleness, you know, self control, patience. Those things, they just keep giving and giving. There's not like,
Yeah.
well, it's not like drugs. Like, well, I don't even know drugs very well, but like I took a pill last week and it took all my pain away. And this week I took a pill and it didn't take it all away. So now I'm up to two pills. And you
Yeah.
get that's what diminishing rewards is, and we all know about that when it comes to addiction. But what we don't see the other side of that is what doesn't have diminishing rewards. Attention seeking behavior, diminishing rewards. People thinking I'm good and my appearance, diminishing rewards. What doesn't have diminishing rewards? Life change on the inside for the better. What else? What do you think?
Being in the presence of God, in a humble way. That's what's going to be in heaven is pure worship. Something that doesn't have a diminishing reward would be helping people for the right reasons.
Yeah,
Doing I don't know how to explain it another way other than doing the right thing because it's like a muscle that you gain once. I know some people don't like to hear it, but it's you don't have it unless you have love. And if you don't have Jesus, you don't have love. So you having this Jesus inside of you and always letting him work in your family and your friends and no matter like that's never going to diminish. It's going to reign forever. The encountering and the love that he has that we get to experience with him.
well, and I think we covered that really well. And I'm thinking about something else. And of course, we can always flip back to something you want to talk about some more at any time. But I wanted to share a fun story, right? I mean, there's room for that. Like we were talking about $100 bills, and I wanted to tell you the story when I found $2,300 in $100 bills.
Really?
And this was only like 3 years ago. I was walking Cassie, my dog, my Pomeranian Chihuahua, as I normally do in the morning. First thing, she's got to go use the bathroom. She's up, her ears are perked up, and I know what's up. She's been around for 11 years now in my
Yeah.
life, so we got this communication thing down. So I'm just walking around the RV park. We were in Sanger, Texas, and no, I hope somebody doesn't track me down, but that's okay if they do, because, and you'll see why. So I was walking and I saw this money like this thick with a rubber band around it, just sitting there in the middle of the road, and I was like, "Hello?"
It must have got pulled
It's
over. Took
it's
that
like
money.
7 a.m. in the morning, right? I'm like, "There's nobody out." Like it was sitting kind of in front of one of my neighbor's RV, but not like in what I would consider the property, but in the road. And I was like, I wonder if it was theirs. You know me and you're my Facebook friend. You could look at my Facebook and go back in my history and you could find when I posted something on Facebook about it. And we might even have it here somewhere, I guess, if people come looking for it. But what it turned out was I was looking at it and I rolled it out. I was like, what do I do? Is there going to be somebody coming to kill me for this? I was like, I was
Yeah, with
feeling all range of
2,300.
emotions. I was feeling like I was feeling really excited. I was feeling a little apprehensive and everything confused.
Yeah,
I was like, well, what do I, you start thinking, what can I spend $2,300
all
on?
the temptations.
I'd probably hand it over to jail to pay off some debt or something, some credit card debt. But yeah, we looked at it and I was like, okay, let me take a second and think about this. And I posted it like anybody missing this. I think I posted on Facebook or what should you do if you find this money?
Yeah,
Well, about the time people started responding, I was looking at we were talking about authenticity, right? I was looking at this $100 bill. I was like, okay. I mean, at first I just wanted to count it. One, two, three, $2,300. I was like, dang, somebody's gonna be missing this. Well, you know, anyway, so I'm looking at the $100 bill. I got like something about Department of Motion Pictures on the top, right? It
yeah,
was like the best we could figure fake money used in a movie or something, right? Fake Benjamins. And it had Benjamin David. It had Benjamin, Franklin on it and everything. He looked normal. It looked like a $100 bill. There
yeah.
probably wasn't, I think there was even the shiny numbers they have. There wasn't the
But yeah,
metal
I've seen
strip
them.
in it.
They make good ones.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it fooled me for a little while, but I've been around a while, and I was like,
I've been spending
twenty-three
dollar
hundred
bills
dollars.
all my life.
I don't drop a $1 bill anywhere. I'm definitely not dropping $2,300 bills, and $2,300, and I don't think anybody else would either. But yeah, so people were saying take it to the police department and turn it in and do this and do that. And we were the home all day that day, and we're just sitting there waiting for somebody to come knock on the door. Hey, with guns drawn. I don't know what was going to
Yeah,
happen. That was me, Cassie. That was me. She's getting all up in arms over there. But yeah, so we didn't know what to do or what to think. But over time, within an hour, I figured out it's fake money. But I was like, who carries around hundreds in a rubber band? So I was at all levels of analysis on this money. And then finally, like I said, I think we got it in our junk drawer now, just sitting there.
yeah,
But I thought about how most people, I mean, different ways you could use it. Like backwards country, what's his name? Here, I'll take your trailer for twenty three hundred
yeah.
dollars,
Buy
and
your
then he gets in
motorcycle.
trouble.
Yeah.
And I thought about how
Or
how that
drug deals, buying drugs with
sure,
it, things
yeah,
like that.
maybe that's why they dropped it, right? Because
Yeah. Got
nobody in that RV
getting
park in
pulled
Sanger,
over,
Texas, was
throwing
in the
down the car.
movies.
Yeah.
Nobody in that RV park was in the movies. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
I've seen so many movies. At least not in the G to R-rated movies. I don't know about other movies, but yeah. So that was an interesting and kind of fun story. But it was interesting to see how people responded to that as well. Like,
Yeah. Oh, it's mine.
well, nobody said that actually.
Really?
They, well, I
Wow.
mean, it could be considered probably counterfeit. If you try to use it to buy something. I imagine you get in
Yeah.
trouble. Nowadays, most places they'll take out a marker and mark on it or something, and we're like, okay, it's
Yeah.
legit. Or
Well,
at least they'll hold it up and look at it.
you can get past the mark now too. Yep.
This
Know
isn't the
all
part of
about.
the show when we talk about how to counterfeit $100 bills. Okay, stop. Just stop.
Yeah. That's what I got to talk to you after the show.
Oh, okay, okay, good. Oh no, no. Here's a different philosophy that you're not going to hear very many places. Like, I have enough. You know,
Yeah.
I have enough. I don't need $2,300 of fake dollars. I didn't use
Don't
it to
need it.
buy anything, right?
Don't need
It's a
it. Don't
novelty.
want it.
I
There's no
could give it
reason
for a
for it.
You know what I'll do? I'll probably throw in a white elephant gift or something just to watch
Yeah.
what happens. Yeah, at the family, like
Yeah, you could
twenty
maybe
three
play a
hundred
prank on your
dollars,
family or make
and
some
then you
fake
let them know.
TikTok
Like, by the
skit.
way,
Yeah, make some TikTok skit of surprises by money and make it fake, just lie with their videos. Yeah, it's amazing the amount of things. It doesn't matter what humans come up with. There's always ways to make it malicious. It's amazing to me. It's like we came up with this paper so that we could buy things and trade things from each other so that we didn't actually have to lose anything. It's
in the
and
barter.
we find a way to make it evil, to lie with it and to steal with it, to fake it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. I don't know. Well, I can't get listened to any less on my podcast, so like I can talk about whatever I want. But yeah, I mean, I think about I've done a few really good barter trades, and I've talked about probably with you and on this podcast too, like trading honey for beef and trading honey for other things, and the barter possibilities and everything has been a lot of fun to think about. And I've recently talked to a friend of mine who ranches cattle, raises cattle, and he trades stuff for leases on land.
Mm,
So like this one guy, he has a lease on 10 of his acres, and all he doesn't pay him. He just comes by Moses' front yard and he's like, "Yeah,
mm.
you can use my 10 acres for your cattle." And another guy, all he does is mend the fences and keep it looking all right, mow it and weed it and everything else. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you can have your cattle on my 100 acres. I don't care.
Which is
Just
how
keep the
we
fences up."
operated 200 years ago. People talk about today, we knew our neighbors, generations ago. It's amazing. It's like, how could you know your neighbors? You don't, you go to the grocery store and you eat out at McDonald's and you don't ever talk to your neighbors. But the way that we did it 100 years ago was your neighbors took care of each other. You watched each other's property. You took care of the fence. Like, it wasn't, no, this is my side of the fence. You need to fix that side of the fence. It was, oh no, I'll do the fences. You take care of the grass. We'll trim. We can work out something on the trees. And it
Yeah.
wasn't all of this separatist government ideology.
Well, neighbors haven't always got along. But yeah, I mean, barter is always has been a thing, and I think that's what we're getting back. We're talking about right now is you
Yeah,
can barter. Used to, like, I'll raise the corn, you raise the beans, and I'll trade you
yeah,
some of mine.
yeah,
And what does it take for that system to go wrong? Like a drought. And he only has corn and I don't have beans. And like, he's like, okay, I'm ready to
yeah.
trade. And you're like, I don't got beans. Well, I'm not giving
Some
you
type of
corn.
blight. And now,
Yeah.
and now you're out, and somebody else is trying to buy the property, and they're
And then
trying to
there's
grow
this thought
sunflower.
of, well, I'm in need, so what I'm going to do from now on is just trade everything I've got for money and try and get a lot of it so that I can more than cover my bills and have some extra
Yeah.
left over and
And now I've just got a
expand.
bunch of paper.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about anything. I don't know how to fix my own plumbing. I'm stuck on the side of the road and I don't have the tools to much less an extra tire. All I have is a bunch of paper.
Yeah. And I think you can eat it, but I don't think there's any nutritional value to it.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll mess you up all kinds of ways.
And probably the dyes are probably poisonous or something. I don't know, but
Yeah. Magnetic ink and all the everything else. Yeah, did you ever hear about the guy that he started with a red paper clip and he traded it for like a typewriter or something, and then he traded the typewriter for something else, and he eventually bought a house with everything that he just traded for the paper clip.
well,
And
and
that's
that's
like,
yeah, that's a junk industry in a nutshell. Like I just pick up people's junk and now I have extra water heaters and oh, you need a water heater? Well, I need my fence fixed. Okay. Boom, here you go. You know.
because if a culture has if a culture is based around working and bartering, there's equal opportunity for success. But because the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy and hoard everything on this earth for himself, there's this idea of gaining paper currency in place for your actual time and your money and your actual physical belongings. And so
Yeah.
you have nothing, you have no knowledge of how to do anything. So you're just this brainless lump that that dances for views on.
Yeah. Well, and how do we walk ourselves out of that? I think
Yeah.
it's a baby step at a time. I mean, it starts with, I wonder if I could grow cucumbers or, whatever.
Yeah.
It starts with a flower pot, perhaps, or it starts with, well, I don't know plumbing, but, I can talk to somebody who does and work with them. Or,
My idea is it's sad, but I feel like it may be true that for us to back out and then go into another direction, things like war need to happen. I mean, it's been since the beginning of time for any major change in a culture, all the way back from Cain and Abel. For a change in culture, he murdered his brother. He called war upon his own people. And I think that we're so deep into this society and this culture that the only way for it to change would be for something massive, something bigger than 9/11, right? Like
mm,
it would have to be terrible, and it's always horrible, but that's what brings about the change that you know ushers on the new age, the new cultures, beliefs, the new flags and everything in between.
well, yeah. Well, I've been thinking about civilizations and how they have a life like a human and how they eventually die. And I think, and this is my theory, I'm only partially educated, but I think that like comfort is
Mm,
actually what leads to the death of a civilization.
yeah.
If you think about, well, and I only know a few, like the Roman Empire, barely. I know America, UK, France, Portugal, like what they taught me in my education, coming up both through elementary, high school, college. And you see that like they get enough. They finally reach a golden age or whatever, and then after that they're lazy. Maybe they
Yeah.
keep the spear in the closet now instead of keeping it at the dining room table. And then,
Yeah.
then it moves from the closet to the storage unit, and then it moves from the storage unit to the garage sale, and they sell it. And then, they pretty much destroy themselves from the inside when they get too comfortable. And I think about how Jesus shared a story about that too, about the rich guy, and he had, was it rolls of hay in his barn or something, and he just had plenty, and he's like, well, I guess I'll just get a bigger barn and put more hay in
Yeah.
there and
And then
eat
he
and drink and
dies.
be happy, and he dies the next day, and his life was required of him. And it's like that's how it works in life though. When we and it seems like most of our culture is pushed. I don't know the youngest culture, but it's like pushing for what is the next level of comfort? What is
Yeah.
the next level of we don't do any work and everybody else does all the work for us? And that's not how we grow and that's not how we learn as humans. Like our body and our mind is made for hardship. It
Yeah.
grows in hardship. I mean, I'm not saying drop yourself off on a deserted island and see if you survive because you'll grow from that.
Yeah.
Although there's good movies about that, but
Although I do
go ahead.
enjoy that in my life. I've taken on that challenge in more mediocre ways, and I like to watch those guys that just drop off on some random Australian archipelago and survive for a week and a half with nothing but a screwdriver.
Yeah,
But I think about that sometimes now, especially, you mentioned it, seeking the next level of comfort or what can I not do. And it's amazing to think about now we have this AI and even art. We're trying to figure out how to have it done for us. We don't even want to make our own art anymore. We don't even want to
yeah,
make our own music anymore. China has they're called blackout facilities, I think, something like that. But they have like their vehicle manufacturers where they've got those robots, with the one arm. They've got them so efficient and so well programmed that they have these facilities that are massive warehouses that have no lights, no running water, no anything like that, just for 100% efficiency for robots building these cars in the dark. Like there's no lights in there. There's no human quality control. It's just straight from manufacturer to ship the car to the place. It's all black, no humans. And it's like, why do we feel the need to do that? Like, what is it about our culture that's so inherently like lazy?
Yeah.
What do you call it? Instant gratification.
Yeah.
That's the drug that, like, people say the number one drug that affects the world is caffeine because we have kids drinking it or whatever, but it's instant gratification. It's instant dopamine. It's You're no longer tilling the land or skinning an animal to from cleaning it, from killing to cleaning to cooking to eating. You have this dopamine of, like, I've prepared this meal for my family and we're eating it, we've survived another day. Now it's you wake up in the morning and you scroll through your phone and bam, 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 dopamine, 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 dopamine. And that's the drug that's killing everyone, is
Mm.
instant gratification, I think, is
Yeah.
just this addiction to immediate pleasure, which is, like you said, laziness.
Well, and it's got diminishing returns too. Just another thing. After you watch it for enough time, you're like, man, I don't want to see anything. Maybe I'll sit here quietly or in the dark and read a book
Yeah.
with a light on or something. Like I'm peopled out. I'm information overload. Yeah. It's interesting that, well, I think going back to hardship too, and how much memory making happens. Like our brain and our memory is engaged when we're going through something. And I think we got to be intentional to some level
Yeah.
to bring a little bit of hardship into our life, right? Make things not as easy. And I love what Bruce Lee said so long ago. He was like, take the stairs, not the elevator. He said, how do you want to stay in shape in our society? Go the longer way around a little bit. Take a little
Yeah.
bit more time,
Yeah.
invest a little bit of sweat, you know. It's almost like people's life goal is to never sweat.
Yeah. Some people, they have to go grocery shopping on a Saturday, so they wake up and they load in their truck and they go to Walmart or Aldi's or wherever you go. And you're trying to get the closest parking spot to the door, and you've got to park 6 spaces away from the front one. And so your day is ruined, absolutely ruined. Instead of
Mm,
just being satisfied with parking at the back and getting 5 minutes of exercise, you get an extra 150 steps in your day. Instead of being satisfied with getting a little exercise and like, I get to walk in the sun, it's a nice beautiful day, thank you God, I'm breathing air that's not circulated through a ventilation system for a couple extra
right.
seconds. Instead, you're, oh my God, I have to be the first one in the parking spot. If I'm not here, my day's ruined. I have to walk, I have to carry my bags. It's an extra 30 feet of just, it's horrible. My day is just absolutely crushed. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
it's almost pains you to know that that's how your brother and sister spend their day.
Yeah. Your fellow human. Like, well, and I like how this brings us back to listening a little bit. Like, listening to my body and how it functions. Listening to my creator's intent by seeing how my body works. It's funny, my body doesn't like all this food. It like
Yeah,
barely operates. I'm like operating at half power, if I
yeah,
want to do anything. Like I'm pretty much in a walking coma if I'm eating stuff out of boxes all day long for
yeah.
the week.
That's something I've gotten started to implement in Jess's lifestyle is like things like orange juice, apple juice. You have breakfast and you pour yourself a nice tall glass of orange juice. And if you stop and think, your body's actually like, whoa, hang on. Why did you just eat 15 oranges? I'm processing 16 oranges. I don't know what to do right now. It's so much sugar. It's so much like if you think about what we're actually supposed to be eating as humans that don't live in these cushy, comfy homes and drive these cars and have heated seats and all these things, like we would eat one apple and some nuts and maybe a quarter of a fish, and the rest would be for the partner that you were with if you didn't have kids yet, right? Like, but instead we're like eating an entire beef flank with 6 potatoes mashed together with butter and salt and pepper, along with, you know, a glass of wine and whatever else, and
Yeah.
plus the dessert, not to mention that. and then we wonder why we're so unhealthy as a society. And then we get that instant gratification, right? Like that you immediate, just overwhelming good sensation on your tongue. And then, you want to be full faster so that you can get on to the next thing in your day. And gosh, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
I was asking Jess this the other day. We were talking, we were driving somewhere, and I asked her, I said, there was some advertisement on the radio that tipped me off. I said, what do you think it would take for I don't want to like throw a big news, but the left or the people that want to kill children or mutilate children, the transgenders, what would it take for the like majority, 98% of that society to change their way of thinking? Because we've seen that in history. Nations realize that they're going the wrong way, right? Like when Paul preached, where was it that he preached? And they took all of their idols and all of the things and they burnt it all and they destroyed it all and they followed Jesus. It's like, what would it take for the people that are just absolutely lost in darkness and self mutilation and just sexual gratification to completely change face as a nation, as a people? And that was a cool concept to brainstorm on.
Yeah, it's a long question.
Because God considers us sheep, and there's this thing called the herd mentality, right? Like you don't need to convince everybody; you just need to convince a major following, right? Like you have a herd of sheep, and you need them to cross a plank that's set across the stream, and they're all terrified. They don't trust you. They see you going across the shepherd, but they don't want to follow you because they know that it's safe on this side, but they know that they need to cross this dangerous unknown territory. But the shepherd, if he moves one and two sheep, he just picks them up and places them on the plank and they start walking. The rest of the sheep will begin to follow. And it's
Yeah.
like there needs to become this point of leadership for the people that you're trying to change, because you're just picking off on the sidelines these one two stragglers. But if you can convince the one that everybody's eyes is on, then that's when the entire herd will begin to follow the directive that you're
Hmm.
giving.
Well, and maybe you're already the sheep you put on the plank.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe there's already people that are paying
Wow.
attention and noticing and following.
Wow. Yeah. Why do I have to be the one that convinces the other sheep when I can
Yeah,
just walk
yeah.
across the plain?
Yeah, why do you already have to do the work if it's just in
Yeah.
our nature? You're like, you took a step of faith. You're out there on the plank and you're like, I don't know about nothing out here. This looks scary, but I guess only a few more steps and I'm on the other side, and I think it is really powerful, and I'm glad we don't get to see all the people that are like, what's he doing over there?
Yeah.
I think I'll try that. We don't get to see that because
Yeah.
our heads would blow up super big. Like,
Yeah. Then
well,
again, puffed
everybody
up and
follow
conceited with
me and look at
oneself.
me.
Yeah.
Huh? What's that?
You become puffed up and conceited
Yeah,
again. The sin nature.
yeah, yeah. So I would think, well, that it's already happening. Every once in a while you get a little glance of somebody saying, for us, we went on the road RVing in 2022. And every once in a while you look in your friend group and they're like, oh, that person's doing it too. This person's doing it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then every once in a while, really, really rarely, somebody says, yeah, you inspired us. And you get this little bit of data
Yeah.
validation, the data
Yeah.
validation. You don't get the validation where you're like, am I making a difference in the world? You look around and there is no difference at all. But then you go down the trail a little bit and somebody says, hey, thanks for going on the road all the time. Now we're on the road all the time. And you're like, oh, cool. Fist bump. Boom. Thanks for letting me know.
Most
Well, I
definitely.
like that. I like that look on your face when I said that. You were like about you're the sheep on the plank. You're like, it's already
Yeah.
working. I'm already
It's
doing it.
I was thinking that because it's just I'm very zealous for what I encountered. And so as an early Christian, someone who was I wasn't like, I wouldn't say violent, but someone who was very patriotic, ready to go to war with any other country or anyone that tried to say that we couldn't do what we wanted as America. Like I was that guy. that flew the flags out of the back of his truck with the train horn, right? And so that kind of transferred over into this zealous, like militaristic attitude of kind of like Nebuchadnezzar. So like when Nebuchadnezzar was, when he finally saw that that Daniel was hearing from his God who was superior to the other gods, he was like, "Oh wow, your God is above all the other gods. So everyone who doesn't listen to your God, I'm going to tear them limb from limb." And
Right.
that's kind of like how I felt of like, well, these people are still killing all of our children, and now I'm this Christian and I see things from this perspective of this beautiful life that God gave us and that he sacrificed himself, but now I want to go to war and kill
Yeah.
all these people like that. And so I struggle with that sometimes. You have the truth, but you need to continue to dig deeper because you'll spin it, you'll concede it, you'll get puffed up, you'll think that you're better than other people or that you deserve something more than they do. And that's just not the way that it is. But I'd never thought about it that way of like, why do I need to be the one to say the right thing to that guy when I could just be the sheep crossing the plain?
Yeah. And I like the idea of most of the smart work being in God's area of things
Yeah.
He has to do. And
Yeah.
this light following is my
Yeah.
area, and when by light following it's probably heavier than a lot of people. Like I'm reading my scriptures. I'm looking for the one constantly. I'm trying to help people all along, with the pottery workshops, with the bees, with the honey, with everything, trying to help other people. And in the little ways that are fun to me. And those are the ways you could call it. I mean, I don't like throwing the word ministry on it,
Yeah.
but because ministry can be something that, you go
Yeah.
to school for 12 years and now you're authorized to do, and
Yeah.
you're
Legalism.
ordained and trained for ministry. Go out there and do something big. Be a
Yeah.
missionary or a pastor. And it's kind of like little M ministry. Like, hey, cup of cold water in the name of a saint, kind of ministry. It's
Well,
small
that's
scale ministry. Go ahead.
scripture says, even though in our society you may not be legally teaching the gospel or the Bible in a school, you do feel like you're taking on the role as a teacher. And that's why scripture says that you'll be judged twice over. But like
Sure.
you can see that that's because it's like, what are you doing with the ability that you have to teach now that you've decided that you want to do that? Right. That's where that extra judgment comes in, is like you have so much more to handle. When as a Christian, you can have a relationship with Jesus, and all you need to do is walk with him and eat the grass because you're a sheep following the shepherd. That's all you need to do. All you have to do as a Christian, and people are so afraid of that because they feel like if they go any deeper, they can't preach the gospel to other people because they're stuck on that, like, oh my God, I am gonna be judged again
Right.
if I preach anything, so I'm just gonna be quiet. When that's not really telling someone about something that changed your life compared to devoting your life to digging deeper and learning more.
Yeah.
But your plate is going to be bigger because of what you want to do. They're right there. You're going to have more to be trusted with.
Well, we're almost at an hour now.
Yeah, we're at that time, huh?
It goes by so fast.
Yeah, when you're having fun.
Any last thoughts or anything we didn't
Yeah,
hit on that you wanted to before we go?
we didn't really talk about the near death experiences as much as I was imagining, but I feel fulfilled. I think like we talked on some good stuff, some good things to listen to
Yeah.
on the highway.
Yeah. I'll definitely be listening to this episode
I will
some
listen to it.
more.
I'll have Jess listen to it.
There you go. Well, you didn't put any messages for her in here directly, so that's good. Like,
Yeah,
like you
shout
take your
outs.
argument to the next level. Like, what some people think, and it's really jest or anything like that. So that's good. That's good. We're not passive aggressive like that, but yeah, thanks for joining me today. It was fun, and we'll
Thanks
do
for
it
having me.
again. You get that. You get some more reflection on your
Yeah.
near-death experience on a motorcycle.
Hopefully, I don't have to hit another deer on the interstate to get back on your show.
Well, you didn't have to the first time, so
Yeah. Hopefully, by the end of this week, I'll be fixing things myself a month and a half after the fact. I'll be
Yeah.
able to use my arm again. I took
Yeah.
my first
So,
shower since the surgery this morning, so that was
oh,
awesome.
nice. Yeah, you lost. I'm just letting my listeners know you lost the use of your left hand, which is your dominant hand.
Yeah, that's my dominant hand.
So he's been doing everything right-handed. He feels a
Shattered
little
the
bit out of
shattered
place.
the head of my humerus inside of the shoulder joint as it was coming out. It broke the head, sheared it off, and broke it into a couple pieces. So they had to go in there and take all the extra bone out of the joint. And there's something that
Yeah.
holds your shoulder in place called the labum, and they had to put that back together with screws and stuff, and hold my shoulder joint back together so I can use it again. 26 years old with arthritis.
I mean, if something could, if there was something that could make you appreciate the way God did it in the first place, it's got to be having man screw screws into your shoulder. It's like,
Yeah,
I didn't know how good I had it before. I
yeah, no
think that
kidding.
about, yeah, God did it pretty good.
He
Well,
really did.
thank you, sir, for the time,
Yeah,
and we'll be in touch. You have a great
yeah.
day.
Thanks for having me. All right,
Okay,
Aaron.
bye.
Bye, y'all.